Hello, everybody. Welcome to the No BS Zone. For those of you who don't know, I'm Bernie Goldberg, and I'm here with the great mind of the Rocky Mountains, John Daly. How you doing, John?
I'm good, Bernie. I appreciate the compliment there. Thank you.
What, I read exactly what you said I should say.
Excellent. You did a good job of it. Thank you.
He didn't tell me to say that. Well, let's start out with the president's upcoming trip to Alaska to meet with Vladimir Putin. Let me lay out what I see as the worst case scenario, which I also think is the most likely scenario. Donald Trump sits down with Putin. Putin knows Trump very well, compliments him. Trump eats up the compliment. Putin presents a plan where he gives up virtually nothing and gets to keep everything he's conquered in Ukraine. Donald Trump figures this is the best we're going to get. He says, we got a deal. I'm going to present it to Zelensky. He presents it to Zelensky, who balks and says, this is ridiculous. We're getting nothing. Russia's getting everything. And then, and then Donald Trump paints Zelensky as the obstacle to peace and also the obstacle to Donald Trump winning a Nobel Peace Prize, which at some level, this is what it's all about. Do I think Donald Trump wants to end war where people are dying every day? Yes, I do. I'll give him credit for sincerity on that. But this is about a Nobel Peace Prize. And if Zelensky is standing in the way, Donald Trump will paint him as the villain in all of this. As always, I can be wrong. To you, John.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that Trump is consumed with this idea of winning a Nobel Peace Prize. I also think he stands about the same chance as I do of actually winning one. Now, some people might push back on that and argue, well, wait a minute, Barack Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize for no reason at all, so why is it crazy that Trump might get one? Um, they're correct on Obama. The reason that Obama got it is however, because of who he is, who he was, this young, youthful, liberal guy, the first black U.S. president, whose victory was seen in many ways as a repudiation of the Bush years and the Iraq War. Trump doesn't have those things going for him. The people on the Nobel Committee probably hate Trump even more than they hated Bush. So I don't think that's going to happen no matter what Trump does. But as far as the deal, like you said, we don't know what the deal is yet. But here's what we do know. This is how I see it. Trump has made it very clear for over a decade that he holds this deep affection and admiration for Vladimir Putin. He desperately wants Putin to like him. He desperately wants Putin to admire him. And Trump has demonstrated a willingness over and over again, since coming back into office, to throw Ukraine under the bus, to make all kinds of needless concessions at Ukraine's expense, to play, as you mentioned, Bernie, to blame Zelensky for the war itself, which is insane, all in order to achieve that pretend relationship with Putin. The only thing that I think has stood in the way of that relationship becoming a reality is that I don't think Putin has respect for Trump. He just wants Ukraine, and what Trump wants, I don't think Putin really cares about. Putin has played Trump, as I see it, for a fool over and over again. And I think the one thing positive that has come out of that is that I think people in the administration, like Marco Rubio, now have a louder voice than the anti-Ukraine crowd in the Trump administration, like J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard. And it seems Rubio and perhaps others have used this voice to really sort of highlight that disrespect that Putin has been showing toward Trump, and in some cases use that behind closed doors to convince Trump at times to counter that with new support for Ukraine. He has a better, at least rhetorically, has this better. Well, more than rhetorically, he's okayed more support, but he seems to have a better relationship now with Zelensky than he had the first entire 6 months of his administration. So, that support, I don't have a lot of faith that it's going to endure, but I would love to be proven wrong on that.
Yeah, and you touched on this. Donald Trump likes playing with A-list actors, A-list characters, and Vladimir Putin definitely is an A-list character. Zelensky, not so much. And that's why I think he has more either respect or something resembling respect for Putin as an A-list player than he does for Zelensky. And that's why I think he'll throw Zelensky under the bus if it suits his purpose. I don't have any doubt about that. Anyway, let's move on to two power plays that Donald Trump is in the midst of, employing. One is gerrymandering in Texas, and the other is the Donald Trump's Department of Justice looking into criminal charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James and California's liberal Senator Adam Schiff. The Dems were right. I didn't think this would happen, but the Dems are right. They said Trump's second term would be a revenge term. It's when he's going to get even with everybody who wronged him the first time around, and in between the first time around and the second time around. And he's getting even in, let's start with the gerrymandering. He tells Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, to find 5 seats. Okay, is this raw politics? Is this nothing but I want to win next year in the midterms? Yes. And Abbott, of course, obliges because Donald Trump said to do something. So everybody obliges Donald Trump. Nothing new there. Usually gerrymandering takes place every 10 years after the census. So what Trump is doing is breaking with long-held political norms. Is this good? No. But it's fine with me nonetheless. And I'll tell you why. Dems cheat at gerrymandering, but they cheat on office hours. Office hours meaning every 10 years. So you can cheat on office hours, but when you cheat the way Donald Trump is cheating, everybody in the media notices it and they jump all over him. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. What is he getting even about? He's getting even with a state like Massachusetts, where he won about 40% of the vote the last time around in the presidential election. And Massachusetts has no Democrats in Congress. How did that happen? Trump is saying, I'm getting even for that. California, Trump got about 40% of the vote there, and in Illinois, he got about 40% of the vote, but he only has 17% of the congressional seats in those two places. He's saying, you guys cheated, but you guys cheated when it was okay to cheat at the 10-year mark. I'm cheating now, and if you don't like it, jump in the lake. I'm getting even with you. That's number one. We'll talk about the second thing that he's getting even with the Letitia James and Adam Schiff in a bit. John, your take on gerrymandering?
Yeah, gerrymandering. So it's been going on for hundreds of years. So the act itself is not exactly new. Like you, Bernie, I don't like it, and I never like it when people defend bad behavior with whataboutism, especially when what they're rationalizing for themselves is usually worse in some way than the behavior on the other side that they claim makes, what they do okay. And that is what I think, Republicans are doing is something a little different here with this, not just with them doing this mid-decade, like you said, but also what's interesting to me is that they're sort of just outright admitting it. Usually there's some coy maneuvering going on when the Democrats do it, but from Republicans, this is entirely, and they're outright saying this is about keeping a congressional majority. Say the Democrats have done this, so we want to keep on. We want to be able to support Trump however we can. But all that said, when it comes to concern about political corruption and the abuse of executive power, gerrymandering is pretty far down on my list. There are many other things that trouble me more than that. So, it's annoying to me. It's not like something I think is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like I said, it happens on both sides. I don't like it, but I am much more concerned with other things than I am about what's going on here.
Well, let me make clear, since this is the no BS zone. I'm saying I don't like it, but I don't care.
Right.
I'm with Trump on this. They cheat when it's okay to cheat, and they get away with it. And Trump is saying, now it's my turn. I'm getting even. Is it right? No. I wish he were more gracious. That's a big wish, but I don't care. I'm admitting it. I don't care. I think they started the fire. He's only adding more fuel to it.
So I care, but yeah, not much. And I think what's tough for me when people say, well, the Democrats do it, so I don't care that Republicans. I guess with me, I'm so disconnected from both parties at this point that when someone points to one side's bad behavior to excuse their behavior, I'm just like, what does that do for people like me that think the behavior itself is bad? It doesn't really, I get the argument with it's been done before, that sort of thing. But I guess to me, for someone who just doesn't have any sort of allegiance to either side at this point, that's just not a very compelling argument. I'd rather just people just do good stuff, not bad stuff, not try to work the system for their side. Because yeah, to me, it's not a great argument.
Never lose that wonderful naivete and freshness, John.
Oh, it's not naivety. I get it. I get how politics works and everything. It's just annoyance with both sides that, it's when someone says, when a Republican says what the Democrats are doing is bad, that's fine. But if they're doing it as a defense of something they're doing that's even worse or at par, I feel that is such a weak argument. And I know I'm a minority. I look at that differently than a lot of people who are politically engaged. But yeah, it's just for me, I want the remedy to one side doing something bad is the other side being better. And that's not happening at all, pretty much in today's politics. It's like one side is trying to up the other side at doing something that's not good.
When we're finished with this, I've got a bridge I want to talk to you about. I could sell it to you at dirt cheap. No, I know you're not naive. I think you're idealistic, and being idealistic in the current atmosphere is good luck. Good luck.
I'll
But
call it not idealistic in that I think any of these things are actually going to work the way I want them to. But
but
yeah, it's the principles. It's principled is what I'll call it on this.
okay. Speaking of getting even, Donald Trump is getting even again in this example I'm going to bring up. And once again, I think it's wrong, and I'm with Donald Trump. Okay. I'm not as good a person as you, John. I don't care if he does something wrong in this case. The Trump Department of Justice is looking into criminal charges against Letitia James for some cockamamie thing that she civil rights violation by bringing charges against Donald Trump. Okay, did she bring charges that were politically motivated? Yes. Is he going to win any lawsuit if they bring charges against her? No. Okay. And Adam Schiff is another target because Adam Schiff said he had uh, evidence, not circumstantial, but real evidence against Donald Trump in connection with the Russians. Uh, to this day, I don't think he's ever presented the evidence. Um, so Donald Trump is his Department of Justice is looking into charges against both. Again, is this getting even? Is this retribution? Is this vengeance? Yes, yes, and yes. But I'm not losing any sleep over this either. Trump is getting even. He didn't start this war any more than he started the war in Texas. I don't like any of it. I wish Trump knew the meaning, as I said earlier, of graciousness. I wish he weren't so vindictive. But Letitia James and Adam Schiff went after Trump for political reasons. Now he's doing the same. Could Why should I be against that, John? Because it's the wrong thing.
Well, so people can do a search on bernardgoldberg.com and find where both Bernie and I we're very critical of Letitia James and Adam Schiff pretty harshly over their respective activities, the ones that Trump is upset about that you had just brought up, Bernie. I think both did abuse their power, obviously in different ways. but a public office holder abusing his or her power isn't necessarily illegal. And so it looks like, and I don't think you mentioned this part of it, but it looks like the Trump administration is coming at James and Schiff from sort of a different angle. This mortgage fraud deal. The allegation is that these two separately misrepresented properties as their primary residence for lending purposes.
And if they didn't go after Donald Trump, mortgage fraud on an application, while it's illegal, would not be something Donald Trump would waste his time on.
That's correct. Yeah, and I don't know how substantive the allegations themselves are, but yeah, I think they're obviously being targeted for political reasons. Similarly to how Trump was targeted in some of the New York cases a couple years back. Yeah, I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. And again, I think I'm sort of the sort of the same position as before. It doesn't, for me, that doesn't add weight to the argument that one side did something bad, so it's okay for the other side to do something bad. I want one side to rise above, Bernie. And I know it's not happening. I know there are very few examples of it, but it's what I would like to see.
All I'm saying, John, is I agree with you. That's what I'd like to see also.
Yeah.
But Letitia James is a bad person. Adam Schiff is a bad person. They are political animals, and they went after Donald Trump because they don't like him. They don't like the ties he wears. They don't like the way he talks. They don't like anything about him, anything. And Letitia James, when she ran for Attorney General, said she was going to find something to lay on Donald Trump. That's so wrong that I don't care if he's getting even. I just don't care. I'm not, as I said, you're a better person than I am. I just don't care. Now, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I can't emphasize enough. I mean, I agree with what you said there. And Adam Schiff, I mean, that guy has driven me crazy for a long time. I mean, like we talk about the Russian stuff. He outright just made up stuff. You know, he outright said that Congress had proof that Trump was colluded with the Russians, and he went out there and said it over and over again. And he has never, as far as I know, paid any sort of price. You know, I mean, at the very least, would have liked to have seen him censured. I know that doesn't really mean much, but the fact that he was allowed to serve on other investigative committees after that, I would not have stood for that. I mean, I don't know what Republicans could have done, but like January 6th, he was part. I would not let. I think he be, even though I largely thought the January 6th committee was good, but I think it sort of discredited it to a certain amount to let Adam Schiff be part of it.
Didn't Republicans impeach him?
Adam Schiff?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. If they did, I must have forgotten about it. But yeah,
I mean,
that dude, that guy is not a good player at all.
Yeah, for some reason, I think they impeached him. It didn't go anywhere in the Senate, but that's what I think. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't, but yeah.
If I'm wrong, I apologize to the minions watching us. Now, we could either wrap this up or we can just freelance and say, anything else on your mind, John?
You know, I was telling you, Bernie, before we went on, I was up in the mountains last weekend, Grand Lake, wonderful little mountain town. So when that happens, I sort of disconnect from politics, and it's actually a very, very nice thing because you don't really talk about it much anymore. I will say, right before I left, I saw the latest antics of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now kind of going after the vaccine stuff, taking away funding for mRNA vaccines. I know I'm generalizing it a little bit, but that stuff is concerning to me. You know, I think there was such an anti-vax backlash on the right, especially after the pandemic, that it's still sort of lingering there, and I think it's playing an unhealthy role, no pun intended, in what's going on in this administration right now. RNA, that there is some very promising things involved in that research, in cancer research, and it seems like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came out and made a series of statements about the science is saying that this is that, and scientists and medical professionals were looking at him and saying, we don't know what he's talking about. There is no the science that he's talking about that says these things are dangerous. Well, it's not there. He's just making it up.
Let's be clear how he got the job. he could have run against Donald Trump and cost him votes. And in a close election, Donald Trump, we might be talking about President Kamala Harris right now. So Donald Trump said, "You help me. What would you like?" He said, "I want to be Secretary of Health and Human Services." And Donald Trump says, "It's yours." That's how that's how this garbage works. And that's why so many people have tuned out. They've just tuned out. They know it's crooked. They don't want to accept it, and they watch less news. It's just we've gone too far in this polarization and doing what's best for your team, and the hell with the other team in the country. Let me just say one thing about what's going on in Gaza. It's always called Israel's war with Gaza. I've never heard it called Hamas's war in Gaza. 3 weeks after October 7th, I wrote a piece in this space on the website. And I said, if this were a movie we were watching, instead of real life tragedy, the movie would be written, produced, and directed by Hamas, because they saw this from the jump. They saw how this was going to play out. They knew that their attack was especially ferocious. They knew Israel's response would be especially ferocious. They knew there'd be dead people. They knew there'd be dead children. That's exactly what Hamas wanted. If that sounds extreme, it's not. They needed a lot of dead bodies because they knew the world media would be there to show those images around the world, and they knew the power of images. So the images of dead children and hungry or starving, certainly malnourished people, pictures going all over the world. And they knew, Hamas knew when they started this, what would happen. Israel, that had empathy and sympathy on October 7th, lost it as early as the 8th, and in a few weeks, Israel was the villain and Hamas and the Palestinians were the victims. They wrote the script, and what we're witnessing every day in Gaza is what they wrote and what they knew would happen. And every time a journalist gets near it, Israel is the bad guy. They don't even mention, virtually don't mention, that Hamas is still holding hostages. And this could end. All the journalistic pressure is on Israel because they know Israel can be moved by pressure because they're a liberal democracy. They don't put any pressure on Hamas because they know that's a waste of time. They could say anything they want about Hamas, and Hamas doesn't care what you think, John, doesn't care what I think, doesn't care what the New York Times thinks, doesn't care what anybody thinks. So the media paints this as Israel being the villain, and they virtually don't even mention Hamas. It's a tad annoying, if you don't mind my saying so.
No, I understand that entirely, and I'm open to the idea, criticism of tactics, from Israel, Netanyahu.
Me
But
too. Me too. Just so you know.
yeah, but what gets me is I mean, just as a whole, whenever there's a war effort going on, always provoked by someone else, where Israel becomes engaged, yeah, it's what people lose track of is they go above and beyond the humanitarian efforts of that of pretty much what any other country would do, and that's how they're very selective about their with their targets. They try to minimize collateral damage as much as possible. They go very far out of their way to avoid that. So yeah, it is frustrating that it is played like this. Hamas and they're never blamed in the way they should. I mean, they are the cause of all of this. They this is their fault, but they are not held to standards the way that Israel is. So it is very annoying. I entirely agree.
During the Iran war, the Iran hostage situation in 1980, I guess it was, Walter Cronkite, or 79, started with Jimmy Carter. Walter Cronkite would end the newscast saying, "This is the 350th day of captivity for the hostages. This is the 351st, 52nd, and all the way until they were released. I think every newscast in the United States and every newscast that the BBC puts out in the UK and beyond should end with, this is the X number of days that Hamas has been holding hostages. Now, is that going to put pressure on Hamas? No, they don't care, as I said. But the people who are constantly blaming Israel for everything, it might enter their consciousness that, you know, there are still hostages and Hamas is holding them and Hamas is in the wrong because they're holding them. And nobody is doing that. Nobody is doing that. You know, I pitched this idea to one cable news anchor. I don't know if he's doing it or not, but it isn't being done. It isn't being done any place to the best of my knowledge. And you got to wonder why. Why is there such reluctance to paint Hamas as the villain that they are? Okay, enough. All right, that's it for this week's this edition of the No BS Zone. I hope you liked it. Tell your friends. I know you don't have any friends because you never tell them about us. But I'm going to say goodbye to John and figure out what I'm going to do today.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.